what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy.
There's been a lot of talk about LSU's spring scrimmage, or whatever you want to call it, that was open to the fans on Saturday. Well, a few other teams in the SEC wrapped up their springs with an open practice on Saturday as well. And I want to look at them because, look, people can say what's going to happen with LSU's QB situation behind Garrett Nussmeier. And there's still some people out there who criticize Nussmeier about things that went on in 2024. And I'm here to tell you that you better be happy to have Garrett Nussmeier because you could be one of these three teams. The first team I want to start with is everyone's favorite, the Alabama Crimson Tide. After that scrimmage on Saturday, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb went to the podium, and he was obviously asked about the play of all of his signal callers, and he said if we were to play a game today, Ty Simpson would start. Yes, the same Ty Simpson that could not beat out Jalen Milroe and Tyler Buckner. Tyler Buckner wound up leaving, going to Notre Dame, couldn't play quarterback there, went to play wide receiver, and then just said, to hell with it, I'm going to go play lacrosse. Ty Simpson could not beat him out. The same Jalen Milroe, who last year looked lost at times in the passing game. Ty Simpson couldn't beat him out. It's the same Ty Simpson who has done next to nothing in his college career. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, well, where's Nico going to go? He's not going to go to Alabama. I'll tell you that right now. Even if they wanted to bring him in, I don't think they would. You have Ty Simpson. You have Austin Mack, who you brought over, who kind of followed Kalen DeBoer from Washington. He's a talented guy, but he's played no college football. He's done absolutely nothing in his college career. And then you bring in five-star Keelan Russell, which, okay, everyone's going to look at Keelan Russell and say, okay, well, Keelan Russell's a five-star. It's typical in the Alabama line. We always talk about the Alabama bump. And I'm someone who's like, okay, yeah, the Alabama bump. You're also just mad because they steal all of your players. Keelan Russell was a three-star quarterback when he committed to Alabama. By the time everything was said and done, he was a five-star. Now, I get it. Guys are allowed to improve. But me, Musso, Cassie, anybody else in this building, you're not going to be able to go and be like, oh, this guy used to be a 3, but now he's clearly a 5. First off, I'm not going to be able to go out there on one Friday night and tell you the difference between a 3 and a 5-star. Most of you can't. That's why I think recruiting rankings are crap about half the time. But the fact that he's a 3-star, commits to Alabama, and then like 4 months later, after a pretty good senior year, he jumps all the way up to a 5. I've seen guys go from 3 to 4. I've seen guys go from 4 to 5. I have never seen someone go from a 3-star to a 5-star in like a 5-month period. I've never seen that. So you can say, okay, yeah, well, he's a 5-star freshman. Maybe. 5-star might be a little bit misleading. But right now, you would have Ty Simpson as your starting quarterback. I can't say that I'm shocked by that. I kind of figured this was going to be the situation. Because if you hear the reports out of Alabama, it's, well, he's not doing anything to light it up, but he's kind of the veteran guy in the room. He's controlling the offense. He's playing within the system. That's fine. You won national championships with Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron, and Jacob Coker, and none of them were ever going to be NFL All-Pro type caliber guys. You were also a lot more talented top to bottom. You also had a lot more talent on offense around them. So I'm not so much as worried about the quarterback position, but how can the guys around them elevate the quarterback? We know about Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams is an excellent football player. Who do they have outside of Ryan Williams? I get it. Justice Haynes was a little bit of a disappointment in Alabama his first 2 years. He was a solid back. He wasn't the stud that they wanted him to be, but he's gone. You have Jam Miller back at running back. That's great. You got Jeremy Bernard. He's probably going to be your number 2. You bring in Isaiah Horton, the transfer from Miami. Isaiah Horton had a solid year, but, is that really the guy that is going to help Ty Simpson look a lot better than he was? I don't know. Ryan Williams is certainly a special player. There is no question about it. Jeremy Bernard did some okay things last year. He showed flashes. And then you look at Isaiah Horton. In 3 years in Miami, Isaiah Horton, 70 catches, 790 yards, 6 touchdowns. 11.3 yards per catch, 27.2 yards per game in 3 years. And you can actually take 2022 out. He only played in 4 games. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. Okay, so let's say 70 catches, 790 yards, and 6 touchdowns in a 2-year stretch. I mean, still nothing to beat your chest about of, oh, we got another solid playmaker out here. And you can say, okay, well, he didn't have a good quarterback his first year. He had Cam Ward last year, and I get it. You had Isaiah Arroyo at tight end. You had Xavier Restrepo. You were competing for catches. He's a solid player, but, I mean, is that the one piece that's going to put Alabama over the top? No. So even if Ty Simpson plays over his head, how are the weapons or lack thereof at Alabama going to elevate Ty Simpson and get this team where they want to be? I just don't know if I see it. The next team I want to highlight is the Tennessee Volunteers because, let's be honest, this is the talk of the SEC, and rightfully so. Also, guys, I don't know if you saw this. We have updated the Nico Iamaleava situation ad nauseum. I'm not going to talk about it anymore outside of this. But you remember the report that he wanted somewhere near $4 million to stay at Tennessee. And this is the kind of advice Nico's getting. Now that he's a quote-unquote free agent in college football and he's in the transfer portal, word is now they actually want well over $4 million. They're on the open market. They think they can get that. Look, you're a guy who's played 1 year of college football, under 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 picks, and in your one college football playoff game, you completed 45% of your passes and you lost 45-17. That is the resume that you're bringing in the transfer portal. Back to Tennessee and the guys that are actually going to be there. At least during that spring game, it appears that true freshman George McIntyre is actually the leader in the clubhouse. LSU fans may remember the name George McIntyre. LSU was in on him for quite some time. They were actually considered the favorite to land him for a large period of time. I love his potential. He's a big kid. He's about 6'4". For his high school career, he threw for 8,293 yards, 62 touchdowns in 36 games. He had 9 rushing touchdowns as a senior. He was first team All-State, Player of the Year finalist as a junior. I mean, you name it, George McIntyre's done it. Again, though, a lot like Alabama, you can be excited about George McIntyre. I just said I loved his potential. I really liked him when he was coming out of high school. Dylan Sampson's not there anymore. You didn't have the receiving core last year to help out Nico Iamaleava. How are you going to help out George McIntyre? And I don't think this is necessarily McIntyre's fault. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, Nico's gone. Tennessee's, their season's over. I didn't think they were going to be that great with Nico. But breaking in a true freshman quarterback in the SEC with very little offensive weapons around you is going to be a tough ask. Because, look, I just crapped all over Ty Simpson. At least Ty Simpson's been in this program for 3 years now. George McIntyre's 19 years old. You're putting a lot on that young man's plate. Now, will they dip into the portal and see if a quarterback pops up? Maybe. We haven't seen the final list of who's going to be in the portal, who's not. Maybe they do. Maybe they find some guy that nobody's talking about that they're absolutely in love with. But right now, it's just like Alabama. If the season started today, George McIntyre is probably their starter. As far as the Auburn Tigers go, they may have the best situation of the 3 teams I'm mentioning. You bring in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, Ashton Daniels, who was a starter at Stanford, and freshman Deuce Knight, who a lot of people love. Obviously, Jackson Arnold looks like the leader in that clubhouse. Now, he didn't practice on Saturday during that open practice because, it was a lingering injury, just a precaution, nothing major. But you still have Ashton Daniels, who has experience. You have the hotshot freshman in Deuce Knight. Also, you've added weapons in that transfer portal. That is something that the Auburn coaching staff has done a really good job of. You had Cam Coleman last year, who was really good as a freshman. He was a matchup problem. What do? You bring in Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech. This is a guy who had around 1,000 yards receiving last year, showed he could be a really explosive receiver. LSU showed some interest in Eric Singleton. I mean, that was a name that was brought up time and time again for any team when it was like, hey, which wide receiver can you go get in the portal? Eric Singleton was one of the top names out there. You pair him with a Cam Coleman. I think Jackson Arnold's actually going to have a lot of success at Auburn this year. I get it. He didn't really live up to the 5-star hype last year at Oklahoma. He was disappointing. But Oklahoma had no running game. We know that Nick Anderson basically was out before the season even started. Jackson Arnold had Bauer Sharp, but that's about all he had. His offensive line wasn't great. The running game was non-existent. And that's been the biggest knock on Brent Venables. I'm sure Venables is a defensive coach, but you have to have some semblance of an offense, and they didn't have it out there at Norman. I think under this coaching staff, they're offensive centered. I think Jackson Arnold could have a successful year. But look, I bring up all those different quarterback situations. Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn. I mean, Tennessee was a playoff team last year. Auburn was right in the thick of it. Alabama was right in the thick of it. Auburn looks like, they're getting a lot of hype going into the 2025 season. Anyone who wants to criticize Garrett Nussmeier and LSU in this offense for whatever you see in 2025, take a look at these three teams. Look, you have a returning quarterback who had one of the best first years that you have seen here in Baton Rouge. I think you're actually better at receiver this year than you were last year. Even when losing Mason Taylor at tight end. Because you have Aaron Anderson back, you have Xavier Thomas back. You bring in Nick Anderson, Berrien Brown. Francis is the freshman coming in. He's got a lot of potential. Bauer Sharp's going to play a lot. Trades Green. You lose Mason Taylor, but those two guys combined, I think you're going to be fine at tight end. Now, will Garrett Nussmeier take that second-year jump like a Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels? I don't know. That's a lot to ask. But so many people last year criticized Garrett Nussmeier and being like, well, he's not Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. Yeah, no kidding. Very few people are. But what I thought was unfair was that they were comparing first-year Garrett Nussmeier to second-year Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. Look at Nussmeier's first year as a full-time starter. 64% completion, 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Joe Burrow, first year starting at LSU, 57% completion, 2,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 picks. So the turnovers were very good. There was only 5 of them. The touchdowns weren't quite there. Jaden Daniels in his first year. Now, obviously, you got to take into consideration Jaden's ability to run. I understand that. That's something that Burrow had a little bit of. As far as we know, Nussmeier doesn't really have any of it all. As far as passing, Jaden Daniels, 68% completion, so that was fine. 2,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 picks. You get the point. I get it. He turned the ball over a lot. He had 12 interceptions. He didn't take off and run quite as much as everybody wanted him to when the pocket collapsed. There's certainly things to work on, but raw numbers-wise, Garrett Nussmeier's right there. And I'm not saying he's going to take a second-year jump like a Jaden Daniels or a Joe Burrow, but he could. He's got more weapons than he had last year. There's obviously a lot of question marks on the offensive line, but if you can shore that up, I think you might even be better at running back. You got Durham and Jackson back, but Harlem Berry, who's looked really good in spring practice. JT Lindsey's coming in the fall. I think you're fine at tight end. I mentioned Bauer Sharp and Trades Green. I think they'll be good to go. If you can fix the offensive line and make them a really good unit, this offense could be as good as anybody in the country. And I think that a guy like Garrett Nussmeier is going to be a big part of that, obviously. So I'm not saying he's going to take a Burrow or a Daniels jump in year 2. I'm saying he's got all the pieces around him to do just that. You're under Joe Sloan for a second year. You're a returning starter in the SEC. You got your feet wet last year. You worked out a lot of the kinks and the issues. Looked really good in the bowl game. I get it. He threw that bad interception. I know that was on him. But outside of that, he looked really good in the bowl game. He looked good against Vandy. He looked really good against Oklahoma. As bad as that 3-game stretch was from Garrett Nussmeier and really the entire LSU team, you lose to A&M, then you go Alabama, Florida. I get it. That was not great football. But the last 3 games of the year, Vandy, Oklahoma, and then the bowl game against Baylor, Garrett Nussmeier looked as good as any quarterback in college football. We'll see what he does this year, but look, there's a lot of talk about, Nuss is just going to throw a lot of picks and all this. Look around the SEC, guys. Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, they'd love to have Garrett Nussmeier. You got him. You got a lot of weapons around him. We'll see what he does here in 2025.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
Those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.